From the creators of the hit kids podcast Who Smarted and Netflix's Brainchild comes the adventurous world of mysteries about true histories, affectionately known as math.
Every episode follows Max and Molly. I gotta say, love the name Max. That's my puppy dog's name. Who have just recruited into a secret order of problem solvers on an adventure through time packed with puzzles, hidden equations, history, and laughs. It actually makes learning pretty cool.
Yeah, now I listened to this with my son and it was so fun to listen to. I loved how modern it was with like cool aunt that they really dug and like they dealt with bullies. My son also enjoyed all the math involved. Like he thought it was really cool.
Well, and I have to say, I love anything that brings learning and fun together for kids. I really, really wish that something like this was around for my teens when they were younger. We would have absolutely devoured this on our car trips. It would have been amazing. It's perfect for kids ages 6 and up, and new episodes drop every Thursday.
So tune in to Mysteries About True Histories with your kids. You can follow and listen on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pods. Sometimes this lack of motivation comes from fear, and the fear of being uncomfortable and the fear of putting themselves out there. And I think that's a fear that all of us can relate to, right? Like this fear of the unknown. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Crone, joined here by the lovely Bree Tucker.
Why, hello, everybody. How are you?
I'm
I
trying to
know,
give you
right?
some of your own medicine by giving you faces over here. Except I'm like death metal.
You do devil horns.
Devil horns. Uh, so something we're talking about today is a question that we get a lot in our community, like about how do we motivate our teenagers to do something? How do we get them off their screens, out of their rooms, and going to actually interact with society?
And I'm telling you, people, I got nothing. I got nothing.
I get
No, I'm
it.
joking. I mean, like, I do think one thing is that people have to have realistic expectations. And I think that's something that we talk about today. Like it's sometimes we expect way too much. We expect them to be on our schedule, right?
Mhm.
To
Yeah.
and to be motivated at our level. And that's not biologically how it works.
Well, and also like we really have to define what does motivation mean? Does motivation mean they're doing all their chores? Is that what we're talking about with motivation? Does motivation mean they're excelling in school? Or does motivation mean like they're passionately pursuing something that they're interested in? Like what does it mean? And so I think like that's
Yeah.
one of the first things we have to talk about because a lot of people are like, "Oh, my teen like is playing video games all day with his friends." Which, yeah, I get that. I think that's a great activity. I enjoyed doing that as a teen. I was on the original Nintendo, Brie. Adventure Island 3, that was my jam. Oh my gosh, I knew how to get that secret golden egg right at the end of level 1 that jumped me all the way to level 9, and so it was just focused on level 9. And this was, like, before you got, like, save like, you couldn't save in your game on a Nintendo, an original Nintendo. If you lost all your lives, you were done for and you had to start right over again. So I never actually beat the game. It's kind of
We
sad story. Sad ending.
Aw. We
No.
had a Nintendo, but that was our second. Our first was something
Mhm.
called Intellivision. Did you ever know that one?
No, I did not have
I
Intellivision.
think Intellivision was like a generic game system that came out between Atari and Nintendo, and it had the one thing I remember playing on it, it had 2 games. We had Snafu and Burger Time. Have you heard
Oh,
of
I know.
Burger Time?
Burger Time we had on the Nintendo,
Yeah.
but with the power pad. Do you know the power pad?
Yes, I had
Where
the
like
Power Pad,
yes, the
and
power
and it
pad
had
where
the little gun for the duck
yeah.
hunting, yes.
Yes, the duck hunting. Well, the power pad with Burger Time, like, you had to jump on the 1 and the 2 to put the patty, and then you had to jump back to put the lettuce on, like, the 7 and an 8, and then, like, it was supposed to be like a workout.
I never had oh man, I never had Burger Time on Nintendo. Like, so we had Burger Time and Snafu was this game, like a snake game where like the thing went around. Anyway, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
that was my video game lifestyle, and I was not good at video games. I still suck at video
Oh
games.
my
Like I
gosh.
try, like that's my okay, so talking about our teens, that's my bonding attempt with my son. He loves games. And he really loved Minecraft when he was younger and got really into the whole Fortnite thing too when it first came out. I would try to play, and I swear I am just like those memes. First of all, we went to go play, like, Minecraft, and I kept falling in a hole, and I couldn't figure out how to get out, and I kept getting eaten by zombies and stuff because I kept falling in a hole, and he would just sit there and laugh at me, and I'm like, "Help me, I'm getting
Help
mad,"
me.
because I'm like, "I can't figure this out." And then we went to, like, an arcade type place to play, Fortnite, and I couldn't get out of the corner. I am just
Oh.
not coordinated for video games. I
That
think that
hand-eye coordination.
yeah, Tetris is my height, is the top of my skill level.
Yeah,
Tetris.
oh,
That's it.
oh, I have something to say about Tetris, but it'll go down an interesting path.
Yeah.
Like, I've been thinking about video games a lot because I like to play them, and don't play them right now as an adult. I like games with very specific tasks. So, like, all the games where you're just kinda wandering around, like, I just can't get into them. I can't go find my task. I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
know what to do. So, like, when Among Us was a big phase, I was the one trying to complete all of my tasks in Among Us, and I would seriously get mad at people if they killed me before my tasks were done in Among Us. Do you know what I'm talking about with,
I
like,
did
the
not like
admin
Among Us,
tasks?
but yes,
Yeah.
I could not
Yeah.
stand that game because, yes, I would constantly get killed, and I'm like, "Oh, forget this crap." I'm like,
It was
"Mind."
the object
Yeah.
to get killed.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you know what? I wanna hear people, like, seriously, if you're listening to this episode, leave us a review and tell us what was your favorite, like, what was your game that you remember from your childhood, your video game that was, like, your shiznit when you were a teenager? What was your thing
Yeah.
that you liked? I loved Paperboy too, that was one, and it's a
Yes,
very
Paperboy was a
specific
good one.
task.
Very
Very
specific.
specific task.
I loved it. Yes. So we are going to get into all about inspiring your teen, which maybe they want to be inspired about video games after this podcast episode. we're a little inspired to go back and play those video games now. But if right now you feel like your teen is unmotivated, stick around. We're going to tell you how to motivate them, how to figure out what they're thinking, and how to develop your relationship with them more so you don't feel like you're so on the outskirts. So let's get on with the show.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom Podcast.
So, something cool that we didn't mention in the intro is we have a brand new No Guilt Mom podcast group on Facebook. It is like new this week. If you are
Like,
listening to this episode live, brand new.
spanking new. Brand spanking new, like, it still has the new car smell, all the
Yeah.
shiny tags. It's really fun, and you guys need to come join us because we've got, like, there's some amazing stuff happening this week. As a matter of fact, the day that this episode drops, if I dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's, we're gonna have a live episode being recorded today that people can join in.
Yes. That's the cool thing about the group. Like, we're live streaming our podcast episodes in there. So, like, any questions you have. So, if you're thinking, like, during this episode, oh my gosh, I wish they would have covered this. I wish I could have asked them this question. You could be in that group right now. You could be asking the questions and we work them in the podcast episodes. It's going to be freaking cool.
And
And
you
I
can
say this because it has not launched yet.
and you can see how much I terrorized Joanne by making stupid faces and stuff
Oh
while
my
we're
gosh.
recording. Boop, boop, boop,
So
boop, boop.
much, so much, so much. I kind of just have learned to ignore it. I look at me on the screen instead of Brie, and it's like this. I like hold up a wall right there, which you can't see because you can't see us unless you go to the podcast group and then you can see us.
Exactly.
But we're talking about teens today, and so many people are scared of teens, and I love the teenage age. I think they are awesome and amazing, especially this generation. Gen Z, they are so spunky, at least like the girls that I see on a regular basis. So spunky, so opinionated, so willing to like fight for what they want, and they're strong. And I just admire the heck out of them. So you have so much to look forward to when your kids become teenagers. If you're listening right now and your kid's a tween and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot. When they become a teenager, they're going to be so hard to deal with. And I've just not found that to be the case at all.
I think that I have a similar view but
Mhm.
slightly more I miss my cuddly kiddos. Like,
Mhm.
like, with my kids, first of all, my kids are 15 months apart. So when things happen in my house, they happen all at once. Like, we're talking
Mhm.
about, like, within a year of each other. So I don't get that extra I lost all of them at the same time. I lost both of them
Oh,
at the same time
yeah.
going into teenagehood. And I do love getting to hang out and have more like adult conversations and getting to do more fun things together. But I do miss them wanting to hang out with me more. Like, it's funny. Like, right now, my daughter is like super into our relationship. So that's really awesome. I'm getting a lot more time with her. My son is a little bit more of the prickly teen boy of like, ah, mom, you're so lame. But it is so cool to see them getting into being who they are. And I will say that every day I get to practice patience on the whole not trying to make them do what I think that they should be doing.
That's a
Like,
huge thing.
it's a huge thing, and it's hard for me. It is so hard for me because, like, my role, like, this, like, I am somebody who likes to take charge and likes to have
Mhm.
things on a schedule and done a certain way, and I like to know all the details of what's happening.
Yes.
That those
Mhm.
details make me feel safe and secure. But my kids don't necessarily function the same way, especially because they are teens, and we have learned so much about teens. So, like, I love having been part of No Guilt Mom for all these years because I feel like I am prepared. Like, we have talked to so many experts and read so many books about this that I feel like coming into the teenage years, I knew what to expect. And so while
Mhm.
again, it can be a little rough for me sometimes to keep my opinions to myself,
It's rough for me to keep my opinions to myself. Oh my
right?
gosh, just so like the first thing with teens that we want to emphasize is if you want to motivate your teen, you really have to recognize like their choices and figure out like where they're coming from and what they're doing. And I would add to that and say that you are not going to agree with their choices. It does not mean you have to agree and
Yeah.
support everything all the time. Just yesterday, like my daughter has a spam account and like so many teens have these Instagram spam accounts. And if you're not familiar with spam accounts, they're where they post all their unfiltered pictures or where they say stuff that they could get in trouble with by adults. They could do like anything on there. And their public account is very curated. It is what they want to show to the world. Like you're laughing here, Bree. You probably haven't
I'm just
experienced with
smiling because
spam
I think
accounts.
it's so funny. It is so like,
Yeah.
God, it's so much work.
It is so much
So
work.
much work for these kids, like,
Yeah.
in this world. But anyway,
Yeah, so their spam
digress.
accounts are usually very like locked down. They know every single person who follows them. They only let specific people in. So my daughter and I have been talking a lot about me quote unquote leaving her unheard, which means like she talks to me and I don't respond. Like and this has been a back and forth between us. So much so I posted a reel she showed me on Instagram
I
and we'll
remember.
we'll link to the reel. Yeah. And she's like, "Mom, I like that guy. Like, I enjoy him. He's funny. Like, why'd you have to make fun of it?" And I'm like, "I didn't make fun of it. I just gave another point of view." Because what happened was this guy was complaining that his mom was leaving him unheard. And so he goes to his mom, who's relaxing in her bedroom on her phone, and being like, "Hey, mom, when are we going to that thing again?" And the mom is just like ignoring him, typing on her phone. And he's like, "Okay, good, mom. Nice talking to you." And I'm like, I know exactly what was going on there because it's what goes on at our house. I am working. I am writing something in the middle of writing. And my daughter asked me a question right when I'm in the task. And I do not want to disrupt my focus in the task.
Mhm.
And so then she gets really offended that I leave her unheard. And it bugs the crap out of me.
Well, I mean, because I think they're so, this comes back to our point that teens are on their own timeline, their own
Mhm.
motivation. And let's just be honest, people. Let's take a moment. Let's reflect back to when we were kids. And did we not feel like our parents were just so slow, did
Yeah.
not know what was going on, could not keep up with the times? And yes, I will admit, my 44-year-old body is like, I cannot keep up with this shit all the time. Like, they are like too much everywhere all the time. Like, seriously. when my daughter is like, "Yeah, I work till close tonight." I'm like, "God, I gotta drive out at 11 o'clock at night. I'm worried about my child."
Reasonable pushback there. I mean, I would feel the same way. I'd feel the same way if I was, like, a teenager having to drive up and pick up a friend or, like, a sibling, for
I
sure.
I just think
Like
that so, like, it's common for them to have,
yeah.
like, that different speed that they are doing things. But with that being said, I
Mhm.
think one thing that is really big that we hear, I think as parents in general, a lot of times we'll be like, because the kids aren't doing things on our schedule.
Mhm.
So I'm totally shifting gears on this. So sorry. I'm taking the
Yeah.
train and I'm
Oh,
turning
no.
it on another.
I didn't finish my story,
Oh,
though. I realized I didn't
sorry.
finish my story because my daughter has this spam account and that left me on Herd. Anyways, so she posted a picture of me working and she posts like a little caption, "Mom left me on Herd again." And she does this in a series of images. This was after we talked about it and after she knows like it bugs me. Because also ADHD, hyper focusing, a lot of times I don't even hear her because I'm so
Yeah.
focused on the task at hand. And so I'm like, I commented under it. I'm like, I know where you sleep. And like her friend Brooklyn is like typing. She's like, "Oh, out for blood." Now I'm not the only one bullied by her spam. And I'm like, I could tell why she's bullied by like, and like, so my daughter got really sad. She thought me and her friend were ganging up on her, bullying us
Aw.
on her spam account. But it was all about like, you're not going to agree with their choices. And so it doesn't mean like you just have to accept them. You can put up a fight when we say recognize their choices.
Yeah.
Like it's just not saying, it's saying like, hey, I disagree with it for this way. It's not saying you should do this, you should do that. It's just giving your opinion to it too.
So with that being said, I would like us to talk about like what we should not be doing or what is not helpful when we disagree with their choices and what they're doing. And let's talk about that right after this break.
Hey, all, it is Joanne.
And Bree here.
And we want to tell you about a podcast that you should check out. It's called Understood Explains. This season of the show is hosted by teacher and special education expert Juliana Urturbe, and it's all about how to navigate individual education plans, also known as IEPs.
And in this latest season of Understood Explains, it covers topics like how to tell if your child needs an IEP, and it busts common myths about special education. We actually just listened to the episode, IEPs, Does My Child Need an IEP? And here is what we loved about it.
I loved that it was so digestible. Like, it was such a short episode, and all of the topics, which could be really confusing to parents, were easily explained.
And I loved how they gave great concrete examples because you know how much I love me a good example. They explained what kind of services and supports you could actually see on a child's IEP or individual education plan. And they explained those acronyms. That nothing drives me more crazy than when there's acronyms and I don't get it. I don't know what it stands for. They took the time to explain everything in so much detail and to cover concerns that a lot of families have about special ed services.
To listen to Understood Explains, search for Understood Explains in your podcast app. That's Understood Explains, or just click on the link in our show notes.
This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non-toxic, medical-grade ingredients.
So, Brie, I remember this one time I was in a bike race around Tucson and I wasn't paying attention. We were riding down 4th Avenue and there's railroad tracks, like streetcar tracks. And my bike's tire like went and wedged in to the railroad tracks and I totally
No.
fell down and just like skinned my hands, everything.
Ugh.
I had nothing with me, nothing at all. And it's that times where you want a first aid product and you have nothing. And Active Skin Repair utilizes a molecule called hypochlorous acid. When applied to the skin, the molecule works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing. I've used it on my son's mosquito bites, and I wish I would have had it the time I totally scraped up my hands.
Oh, I hear you. Like whenever I go paddleboarding, kayaking, I'm always trying to find something that is like an all-in-one that I can take with me. And Active Skin Repair could be used like that. It can be used to treat cuts, scrapes, burns, sunburns, rashes, and other types of skin damage. It's also safe and non-toxic, which makes it suitable for all skin types, all parts of the body, like eczema and acne-prone skin, all of that.
With over 500,000 happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews,
recipes and ingredients so safe and clean they can be used from the youngest member of the family to the oldest, you now have one simple solution for all of your family's skin health needs. Visit www.activeskinrepair.com to learn more about active skin repair and to get 20% off your order. Use code NOGUILT.
Okay, so I think that a lot of times when we don't agree with our kids' choices, we are very quick to label them. And it's okay sometimes to label them in a certain way, but I think that we really need to be thoughtful about whether or not we're saying it in front of them, to them, because it is like you just said, like it can be very, very hurtful. I think we tend to give them labels of being lazy,
Yeah.
being
Inconsiderate,
yes, being rude, inconsiderate, selfish.
disrespectful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, all of those things happen a whole lot, and I think that our the way that our parents dealt with it was, okay, well, if they're gonna be lazy, disrespectful, selfish, whatever, I'm gonna threaten them, I'm gonna take things away, I'm gonna tell them that they aren't grateful for stuff and that they're selfish, and I'm gonna tell them that they're all these things. And
And, oh, I think that a lot.
right. Oh, yeah,
I mean, I'd be like
there's a regular basis when I, like, turn to my husband and I'm like, "It's a dickish day in the household."
I mean, like, I think it I'm like, "You were asking me for all this stuff, and then when I ask you for help for cleaning up this little thing, you're like, 'In a minute, mom, I'll get to it later.'" I'm like,
Right.
"What the"
I'm not being left unheard, I'm being left undone, like,
Yes,
whatever, I don't know what the right word is for there, like, uncared for?
ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you feel
But it
it, you
comes
feel it
down
all.
yeah, right? Like, in it so, like, the thing that we're saying is, like, we're not saying that you're not gonna perceive things that way because we are, but we also have to remember that, while sometimes we think we know exactly what's going on, and we
Mhm.
know exactly what's going to happen when they go down path A or path B, sometimes we don't.
Yeah, most of the times we don't. Most of the times they have thought out things a lot further than we have given them credit for. Like my favorite saying is like whenever I get frustrated with my kids, like especially my daughter who's the teenager, I like bring out my Marge Simpson. You know how Marge never like yells or anything. She's like like she has and that's how I feel inside. I'm like, okay." Like, I will just turn away because I realize that she is, like, trying to hit me hard emotionally. She
Mhm.
pokes, and I think that's pretty common in teens. Like, if they feel like they're being manipulated in any way, they will poke you back. So my sister just had a baby, and I have my first niece, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, a girl." And the conversation came up, and I'm like, "When she becomes a teenager, like, just come to me." Because they
Yeah.
will hit you in ways that you are not expecting. And they will trigger you and bring up all your old insecurities. And that is what is very, very hard about raising a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my god, yes, because I've also seen, like, this on Instagram lately, like, talking about how, like, your mom is the only person it was for daughters, at least. It was like, "Your mom is the only woman that always is going to want you to do better than them." And not I don't that came
I'm
out
like,
wrong.
no, no, I
I don't
know
think
the thing you were talking about,
yeah.
though. I know. And I totally disagreed with that comment. I'm like, I don't want you to do better than me. I want you to take what I learned. I want to help you with what I learned so that you don't have to go through the same struggles
Well,
and you don't have to feel like you're all alone through
I think
them.
that's the same thing, though. Like,
Yeah.
I wanna give you the knowledge that I didn't have so that you
Mhm.
have a step up. Like,
Yes.
I think we all do that, right? Like, don't we all? Like, we all look back at how our parents raised us, and even if we had the best freaking parents in the whole wide world and the best relationship with them, we still wanna do better than our parents
Mhm.
did. We still take
Yeah.
those pieces that we enjoyed, pass them on in our parenting to our kids, and we take the pieces that we didn't enjoy and we toss them out.
Yes.
So,
I think that's true.
yeah.
And notice, like, if you're listening right now and you're like, wait a minute, Joanne and Brie have not gotten to like, how do I inspire my teenager at all? Guess what? Guess what? It's mostly the relationship you have with your teen. That is like 95% of inspiring a teen right there is so that they have a strong base to come back to whenever they have problems and difficulties. Because when we talk about inspiring and motivating our kids, like if you go back to like when you were a teenager, you might like remember those feelings of not even knowing like what you want to do in the world, being totally afraid of growing up because you look at like all the money that's needed to have this life you want and have no idea how you're going to get it. I remember being like scared out of my mind to graduate from college because I'm like, I'm not going to find a job. Like, I'm not going to find a job. I can't even imagine what this generation is, where there's actually like no jobs. But
And they know they're not leaving your house anytime soon.
so, like, just know that it is 95% of the relationship. And that is what we've talked about so far. We've talked about like make sure not to label them, making sure, make sure. Do you like how I make up words there?
It's
Make
okay.
sure.
It's okay.
Making sure to like not be triggered by some of their hurtful comments. It's that base of relationship. And we're going to get into some actual strategies you can use once you have that base right after this.
Hey, are you a parent of a teenager? Are you feeling overwhelmed about how to be what they need while also holding limits and boundaries that keep them safe? Are you tired of conversations that negate how messy this season of parenting is? Well, I've got you. My name is Casey O'Rourke. I am a positive discipline trainer, parent coach, and the host of the Joyful Courage podcast. Every week, I come to you with an interview digging into tough topics with experts I trust and solo shows that go deep into the personal growth and mindset needed to raise teens in a way that grows them into confident, capable young people. I am not afraid of getting real about the intersection of conscious parenting and the teen years, while also bringing in vulnerability, humor, and lightness. I'm walking the path with you and honored to serve. Listen to Joyful Courage on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Owen, self-help author with 19 translations of my books, global keynote speaker, and life coach. My podcast, Make Some Noise, has been serving up self-help in a simple to digest way for the last decade. The topics brought in each episode are practical and easy to implement around topics such as working through fears that keep you stuck, different modalities of therapy, managing your negative self-talk, and more. We bring you guest experts, solo episodes, and I even coach listeners on the air around relatable struggles. I also do my best to weave my sense of humor into some heavy topics because, let's face it, life can be pretty hard, and it's so much better when we can have some fun while walking through our challenges. Whether you're seasoned in personal development or just starting out, Make Some Noise podcast will help you become the best version of yourself, the person you're proud of when you look in the mirror and show up in your life. Simply search Make Some Noise with Andrea Owen wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Okay, so with teens and motivation, sometimes this lack of motivation comes from fear and the fear of being uncomfortable and the fear of putting themselves out there. And I think that's a fear that all of us can relate to, right? Like this fear of the unknown.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that teens feel it way stronger than we probably did at their age because, like we talked a little bit about social media, like they are out there for so many people to see. And
Mhm.
I think that the judgment and the fear of that judgment is so much more real to them. Like, like when we were younger, I feel like you always had that fear that or that thought that maybe somebody was saying something behind your back. No, no, these days you know. You
You
know.
know,
It's out there.
I would love, I don't know if I'd enjoy that or not, because if it's out there, then you know, and you don't have to like waste any mental brain power guessing. But I don't, that's kind of beside the point. I think like, I don't know, honestly.
I'm weighing
Knowing
both. I
now,
think it would suck no matter which way it goes.
yeah, like usually now as an adult, I just view critical comments as more of a reflection of the person making it than me because it's nothing to do with me typically.
But
It's
that's
something
a
that they
skill that
take and they
takes
interpret.
time,
Yeah,
right?
it
And
is.
they don't
It's
have
a
that
skill that
yet.
takes time for
But you can
sure.
help them build it.
For sure. Yep. So most of like this and motivation comes from like fear of the unknown.
Mhm.
So here's like a little tactic to take. If your child shows like a slight interest in something, a slight interest. Remove the barriers for them to go and pursue that interest. So here's what I'm talking about. My daughter, she had this little interest in theater at the beginning of this year. She's like, "Oh, yeah, maybe I want to audition for the fall musical." And I'm like, "Oh, that'd be cool. Like, I enjoy theater. I know theater's full of really great people. They're usually
Mhm.
very accepting in theater." And she felt, number one, she was worried about the time involved in theater. Number two, she did not have any experience singing. And she was very, very scared because the audition included a song. And she went back and forth, trying to figure out if she would audition or not. And so it was these small little steps that I tried to remove barriers for her. So, like, she says, "Oh, but I'll need to be picked up later." Okay, I can make that happen. I can pick you up later. I don't know what to do with the song. Okay, well, let's think about that. Like, I think there's YouTube voice tutorials, and I looked on YouTube and there were voice lessons on YouTube.
Mhm.
And so she took a few of those on YouTube to feel more prepared for the song. "Oh, they're having like this workshop. I still don't know if I want to do this." I'm like, "Well, it's not like a big commitment. Just go try the workshop. Just go see. It's like one day after school." And it's all those little steps that they take that build their confidence because they realize that here we go into something and we don't have much of a commitment with it. Like, for instance, the acting workshop or the audition workshop. She goes for a few hours. And what happens during those few hours is she goes with two of her friends and they're in a circle, she says, and they all like take turns reading from the script in the circle. There's two of her friends got completely scared and left the room and refused to read in front of everybody. And she was like, "Okay, I could do this. This isn't such a big deal." And in that little workshop, she realized that she was actually more well suited for this than she thought.
Oh,
Now,
good.
it could have been completely the opposite. She could have been like terrified. There she knows theater's not for her. But like either way, it's just convincing them to take little small steps because they don't need to have their whole life plan ahead of them. Like, we don't have our whole life plan ahead of us. Like, all we need to know is the next step we take. And that's what we're trying to convince our kids to do. Just take that next step and see, and then make another decision after that.
And I think that that really ties into, like, it helps at, like, that builds their self-esteem by letting them try
Mhm.
those new things. So another thing that we didn't say that I think it needs to be said is recognize that kids have choices.
Mhm.
They can choose to do things or not do them. It is really 100% up to them. Like, we cannot force them to do something. Like, an example in my household of that is, like, one of my kiddos studies like there is no tomorrow because that kiddo wants to get straight A's, and that is very important to that child. The other one won't study, like, just doesn't study. Like,
Mhm.
nothing. And that child, getting straight A's is not important to that child. Now, I have pointed out to that child many, many times, you realize that you have all A's and like two really high B's. Uh-huh. I'm like, and I realize that you don't study for a single thing you do. And that child's like, "Yep." And I'm like, imagine what it would be like if you ever tried to like apply yourself. Like, and like you actually really want it. If you and I think actually the way I put it often is like when you find something that's really interesting to you, you're going to be amazing at it. Because
There you go.
you're gonna put
Yeah.
yourself. I know you're like, oh, not sure about the way you're talking
Yeah.
about this, Brie. I'm like, you're going to do amazing because you're gonna actually apply yourself. And if you can do this well without doing any extra work, imagine what it's gonna be like when you are like totally committed to something. And you know
Yeah.
what that kid did last night? Studied for 3 hours for their AP test, which they had
Oh.
absolutely no intention of studying for whatsoever. And I was just like, "Wow, what made you decide to do this?" And that kiddo was just like, "I'm just gonna see what I can do." And then
Oh.
came home the next day and was like, I'm like, "So how do you think you did on your AP test?" 2 days before that, the person that kiddo had said, like, "I think I'll probably get like a 3." Came
Mhm.
back and was like, "Oh, I'm" she goes, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I might have a 5, like a 4 or a 5." I mean, like, I there was not a single thing on that test I did not know. And I'm like, "Wow."
Oh.
And I'm trying not to say pronouns. And the child said, yeah, like studying really, like it made it so that it was so much easier. I had no idea it was going to be this easy. And I'm like, uh-huh.
I'm glad they decided to test that out, but it was, like, so not under your control. It was
Right.
something that they had to decide
I
to
could have
do on
taken it
their own.
away, like, and I'm not saying that that works in every single scenario, but I'm just saying forcing that child to study wouldn't have gone very well. Would have been a test of wills.
No.
Like that kid could have sat there on their bed and stared at the wall for 3 hours because I was like, "You're not leaving your room because you need to study all night." Like you can't
Or you
recognize
could
that
have,
they
like,
have choices.
made them quit their job, change the Wi-Fi password, like, take all of these things away from them, and it would still be a battle of wills, and it wouldn't have been the most productive way to do
Yeah.
it
And it was
anyways.
still their choice at the end of the day, like what they were going to do, and made a choice that I was very happy with.
Yeah.
Finally, after like
I
2
mean,
years of not.
I had a situation like that when I was a high schooler, which I always reference. Like, I was so into this club, Odyssey of the Mind, and we had just won regionals and we're going to go to state. And I loved it. I loved it so much. It was performing, it was problem solving, it was everything. And then I got a C in my English class freshman year, and my dad took me out of Odyssey of the Mind. And I just remember just bawling and crying on the floor when I had to call them and be like, I can't come to state because I got a C. And I'm still mad about that. I'm still mad at him. I'm still mad. Did I get a B and A's and B's for the rest of high school? Yeah, I did. Did I learn anything? No, I did not. I did the bare minimum. The bare minimum. I like worked the system. And I mean, maybe that was a way to work the system. I don't know. But I don't think like long term benefits, I'm more angry than anything else for that situation.
Yeah.
Even now, when I see like, okay, well, Joanne, but you went to college and I don't care. I don't care. I think that could have been
You
done
would
a
have gone to
different
college
way.
anyways. Like, did it really
Yeah.
make any big difference other than make it so that you had like less trust?
That was actually like my decision right then. I'm like, I'm going away for college. There's no way I'm dealing with this crap anymore. Like my
Oh.
mom would hear this. She'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna get your father."
The things they get by listening to this podcast.
But you feel so disrespected.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what we forget about kids is like we want this relationship for the long term. We want them to trust us. We want them to rely on us. And we don't get that through punishment and taking things away. So if you're right now thinking about inspiring your kid and one of the things you're considering is taking something away that they love, don't do it. In fact, I would say look at those things they love and find out what it is about them that sparks them and encourage them to dive deeper into those things.
Yes, and like I think that's another really important strategy. Dig deeper with your kids.
Mhm.
Find out what they're thinking. Find out what
Yes.
they're wanting. And then I think a big piece next is like, and how can I support you in that? I tend to be really
Exactly.
big, right? And you know this, like I tend to be real big on like, I'm going to do XYZ. Like I come up with all the ideas. First of all, that takes away all the power from my kid. And then I
Mhm.
get mad at them for not doing stuff. Why would they do
Mhm.
it? Mom always does it. Like I don't why do I need to take initiative? Mom's going to take care of it. So first of all, like by you giving them all the solutions, you're making it so that they don't need to be innovative and they don't need to come up with solutions for starters right
Mhm.
there. Like you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly.
Second of all, it teaches them or it can teach them that that you don't believe that they can come up with it on their own, which is
Mhm.
kind of also back into that whole like learned helplessness that a lot of us I don't know. I feel like that's been like a thing that we've talked about like in society
Yeah.
a lot lately, maybe on social media, like the learned helplessness or weaponized helplessness, all that.
Mm.
And then also it is you coming up with the solutions that work in your life, in your mind, not theirs. And
Mhm.
they may have had something way better. Or
Way
what
better.
you
You have
think is the
no
problem
idea.
isn't really the problem.
Yeah. There's so much. There's so much. So many things like we can dig into in this. So we want to hear from you. Join our new podcast group. Tell us what you think of this episode. Give us your comments. Give us your stories. Tell us your favorite video games from the 90s, like we started out with. and let us know how we can help you. We put the link to the group right below this episode, and we can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, or you can just search No Guilt Mom Podcast. That's the name of
Yep.
our group. Pretty easy to find. We
On
like to make
Facebook,
things
yes.
simple.
It is on Facebook. So until next time, remember, the best mom's a happy mom. Take care of you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Well, hey there, busy mama. Are you looking for ways to make your life easier, your home less chaotic, and at the same time add more joy to your life? My name is Deanna Yates, and I'm the host of Wanna Be Clutter Free, a podcast all about letting go of the stuff we don't need in our lives so that we can focus on what truly matters. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to throw it all away or make you feel guilty about keeping something you love, no matter how many other people don't quite understand it. But I will give you practical and, more importantly, actionable advice so that you can make progress right away. And you won't just hear it from me, there are amazing guests too. It's like having your bestie in your pocket telling you it's okay to let go of the things that are not serving you and your family in a totally non judgmental way. So join me over on the podcast where we can work on progress over perfection for those of us that want to be clutter free.